Hey guys, Dov here, back with another unit highlight, today showcasing a unit that I have underrated, and some of you guys get confused. There's always people saying like, oh, I don't underrate this unit, and yes, granted, with any given unit there are going to be people that overrate it and underrate it. Generally, what I'm referring to with underrated units in these videos is units that either I underrate or the community in general underrates, and Grenade Outriders is one that you see occasionally used to very good effect, but with some pretty clear downsides. The recent discussion about Razor Dawns, I figured I would include these guys here. We've got a replay from J Phoenix, Grenade Outriders in a Vanguard situation already opening up on these Wolf Rider archers, making their presence known. A couple of Pistoliers here. Got Boris and a steam tank, bunch of state troops, some Reichsguard, and yeah, some Empire Knights as well for the Greenskins, an absolute horde, Wurzag, some Wolf Rider archers, we've got Spider Riders, Goblins in the front line, a couple Black Orcs, some regular Orc Boar Boys, 4 of them, 2 Spider Riders, so an absolute horde. Does lack terror, which is an issue. It's not the biggest issue in the world, but definitely your build is always better off with terror against non-undead factions, and then again against undead factions, I mean, the terror makes you immune to terror, so that's pretty nice. But the Grenade Outriders here, they do have 100 range, which is exactly the same as Wurzag taking a fireball to the face there, exactly the same as these Wolf Rider archers, so they are actually going to trade at a really nice kind of exchange here. With this little slope, they can kind of fire up and over, and they do take some pretty significant damage in return. They've got pretty low model count, very low HP in general, which is their clear downside. They are one of the squishiest units in the game overall. They are very mobile, though, can quickly reposition there. Nice job by those Reichsguards screening out. The Spider Riders also screening out through these spears here. The Spider Riders definitely very motivated to try and get after those Grenade Outriders, but great job by J Phoenix, able to screen that out. Meanwhile, over here, Wurzag between fireballs and taking cannon fire as well. You can see the steam tank opening up. Got a charge from Boris to terrify him away. He's taking quite a bit of damage already, but the Reichsguard now meeting out in the open against these the Boar Riders, rather. Orc Boar Boys. Nice brain burst to kind of counteract, but Boris cycles in, allowing the Reichsguard to disengage. They've got a very cost-inefficient engagement there. That was really nice for the Boar Boys, actually, in terms of a cost trade, but Boris comes in and is able to kind of bail them out of that situation a little bit, and of course, the Grenade Outriders hanging around. Nice burning head placement as well. Absolutely roast the Night Goblins. They are unbreakable, of course, but any damage you can do against them actually didn't do too much there, but a decent amount. But yeah, the Grenade Outriders, despite the damage they've taken, now firing in, and the Boars targeting in after the Reichsguard, not really sure. Looks like trying to maybe disengage there. Also cycles sort of in and out with multiple units, but Empire State Troop Spearmen in a nice position to support. Meanwhile, the rest of the battlefield here, you can see just kind of screening with these Pistoliers, getting a little bit janky by that rock there, but that's totally fine. Steam Tank just holding in the woods for now, in a very safe position there. And yeah, the terror of Boris being used kind of in tandem with the Reichsguard and the Empire Knights here alongside the Grenade Outriders. Man, Reichsguard, a unit you don't see too often, but in this matchup, the extra melee defense, charge bonus, and weapon damage does help. Reichsguard's biggest issue is their lack of armor-piercing damage. In comparison to other Knights, and Empire Knights do a lot of the same things more cost-effectively. If you want more damage, then generally you go for Knights of the Blazing Sun, but I do like the pick of the Reichsguard, especially if you're like a newer player. Because of the higher melee defense, they're a little bit more forgiving than Knights of the Blazing Sun. Like here, you can see these Reichsguard actually holding in combat for a decent amount of time there. Now screening back with the spears, but a big old foot of Gork drops on the other side on these Empire Knights over here, and the other Reichsguard. Impressive, though, these other Reichsguards still holding, along with Boris, who, of course, I'm planning a video about Boris eventually. He's an interesting choice. In my mind, like, Franz, and for a lot of the really top-level players, they might agree that Franz and Volkmar are usually the best picks, but Boris does actually offer a lot of upside for specific situations, and I would say is a very viable third alternative to either of those. But yeah, great stuff here. At this point, Empire's pretty ahead on the balance of power. Greenskins are still fighting, though, still dangerous here. Wurzag is gone, yeah. Still on the field, actually, here, barely holding his leadership. One of the big bosses gets shattered, but I was going to say, for the Greenskin side, peeling one of these big bosses a little bit earlier on, rather than going all in on Boris to go after this Firecaster here, potentially to snipe him a little bit earlier, try and save Warzag from quite so many fireballs, might have helped out a little bit in this type of situation. The Goblin big bosses just going and assassinating an Empire caster on a horse is one of the best uses for them, I would say. It can be super, super cost-effective here. The last effigy to get, and Boris is approaching his healing cap. It's now visible on his health bar there, as he's taking some nice damage from the Spider Rider archers. Wolf Rider archers almost out of ammo, though, and look at this. Guess who's still firing? Has been firing this whole time, despite that damage they took early on, so you can protect them. These Grenade Outriders, if we check in here, they kind of fire onto those orcs. And the Sigmar Sun's in the distance, 127 kills and an XP Chevron, just helping to clear out this horde before the gates of Altdorf. Very thematic here on this map. Oh yeah, I love the grenade launchers themselves. I don't know if any of you guys watch the YouTube channel Forgotten Weapons. Basically just like a YouTube channel about old guns, pretty much, and the host, Ian McCollum, has recently featured, and has featured a couple times in the past as well, like old wheel lock style hand mortars that look very much like that, so actually kind of realistic in a way. I don't know, they could reliably use grenades during that time, and these grenades actually, if you look at the projectiles, I think they are like actual pineapple grenades, like modern looking hand grenades, so maybe not the most realistic, but decently believable, and certainly a lot of fun. I am a huge fan of all types of gunpowder units, and the grenade launchers in particular, the big booms at a distance on a mobile skirmish unit, very fun, just very hard to use, and if you have ham fists like me, sometimes you get them horribly killed, and as a result you think they're bad, but no, in fact they are very good, just very, very tricky to use. And here in this build, I would say, I was actually kind of surprised when I initially loaded up this replay to take a look at it. I was looking at J Phoenix build here. I was like, he doesn't have enough numbers to really protect the Grenade Outriders here, but playing forward with Boris and kind of that initial Vanguard situation, able to draw the Greenskins into a couple of unfavorable engagements where the Empire could sort of break a few of their units and push them off of this table edge right here, and as a result kind of start to even that out a little bit, protect these Outriders for a decent amount of time and just allow them to get their work done. Really nicely done here, I have to say. And the Reichsguard still holding, of course. Underrated unit Reichsguard, definitely coming soon once I can get a good replay. This is actually probably a pretty decent replay for them. One of them 83 kills, hanging in there until the late game. And yeah, for a build like this, I guess where you need to sort of protect these missile units, makes maybe more sense to have the more defensive Reichsguard over the Knights of the Blazing Sun. Although there are some people that would say you just cut these guys and try and retool this build to bring 4 Empire Knights rather than 3 heavy cavalry, that the greater volume would actually be better, but I don't know. Maybe there's an argument to be made for Reichsguard here. Boris, especially with his AoE debuffs that are leadership conditional, extra shock damage plus that, and the stat differential means they just trade really nicely if they get good engagements. One of them you can see kind of got shredded there a little bit, as did the Empire Knights. But yeah, 148 kills for the Grenade Outriders. Pistoliers also doing some great job screening. The Steam Tank really didn't have to be used in melee much, and I guess that's why the balance power is so far in the Empire's favor, is Desert Fox here really didn't have the best tools for dealing with the Steam Tank. Like, he definitely had enough to deal with a Griffin at least, but there's not like enough elite armor piercing here. I mean, the Black Orcs, if they could, you know, like, they're still relatively healthy here, and a Desert Fox maybe been able to clean out the rest of this build a little bit better. Maybe take out these Grenade Outriders. I don't know, it's tough. with the Wolf Rider archers you saw there, that trade ended up being pretty favorable in J Phoenix's favor, which Tretch won it, by the way. Love the nickname. Yeah, but the Steam Tank, I mean, in melee, in a grind-out fight in late game against Black Orcs, it's hard to say. They are immune to psychology and have pretty heavy weapon damage. The low melee defense the Steam Tank means they're going to be getting pretty consistent hits against it. On the flip side, it does a decent amount of damage. It can't cycle charge, though, like in a late game situation, then probably the Black Orcs would win. But other than that, its Greenskins build doesn't have the best tools. It's something like, actually, the Swamp Things, the Regiment-Renowned River Trolls, you would have to be careful about protecting them from certain things, like getting, blasted by the Grenade Outriders, for example. They do cause terror, though, and they have good armor-piercing damage. That melee attack debuff AoE is nice as well. So you could use them to maybe circle beat the Steam Tank in the late game, and also get some terror routes. Gives you some extra mass to try and punch through also, besides just your cavalry. But anyway, back to the Grenade Outriders here. So, they're a pretty interesting skirmish cavalry. For the cost and the squishiness, again, I guess this is why they're underrated, why I consider them to be, underrated at least, and you should be very careful about using them. Is 800 points for 3,000 HP. I mean, these guys have less... What is that? Yeah, less than 100 HP each, which is pretty standard for skirmish cav. But they have, I guess, a little bit more HP per model than something like Pistoliers, but even still, extremely squishy, only 30 armor, just pitiful melee stats, terrible weapon strength and charge bonus. Really, their only redeeming quality is this massive explosive missile damage. Even speed as well, 84 speed, slower than Pistoliers. I guess regular Outriders also 84, interesting, but slower than most other skirmish cavalry as well. I mean, most are in the 90 speed range, but we compare to the one that I said very controversially was best in class, and certainly not married to that idea. I've heard some good arguments for some other units, and maybe we'll address that in like an overall missile cav tier list relatively soon. But the Grenade Outriders here, overall doing less damage, but the explosion, in theory, can hit multiple targets, right? So, and maybe this can actually be higher if you are hitting, multiple different entities with a single explosion. 800 points, though, only 100 points cheaper and just way squishier. And hunting packs are already kind of squishy in their HP, total HP. They have a pretty good amount of HP per model. Obviously, the armor helps, but... it's an interesting comparison, certainly. Regardless, though, Grenade Outriders, the use cases, I would say, against most factions where you can protect them from enemy missiles, that's kind of, and maintain a mobility advantage, I would say those are two very key things. You can make them work, certainly. And Greenskins is a faction that's interesting. They're very good against them because of the damage they do, help clearing out hordes, as we saw. Greenskins do have a good amount of mobility, though, to try and get on top of them. So I guess it just kind of depends. Can you then use your terror and other tools to protect the Grenade Outriders against the Greenskins? I would say sometimes you will be able to, certainly, but it will take a bit. Same thing with something like Warriors of Chaos or Norska. It's going to be pretty tough to protect against them. I guess Beastmen as well you could include in that category. But if you are able to, get a pretty decisive mobility win with your knights, and again, like Griffins and other terror tools, if you maybe are summoning Manticores as well, using that to kind of win a decisive mobility advantage, and then allowing your Grenade Outriders to work through whatever infantry, even high armor infantry and monsters, to a degree, will take a lot of damage. Monstrous infantry especially, but even big monsters, like, for example, the Mammoth, only has 70 armor, right, which is a decent amount, but it's not a ton, and especially against something like this that does a lot of missile damage in general, and all of them will make contact and explode on contact and just do a bunch of damage. It'll be good, really good against something like a Mammoth. So definitely something to consider. Hopefully you guys enjoyed. If you like this sort of content, be sure to like, subscribe, hit that bell notification. Every time I upload, you'll be notified. Thanks again, and we'll see you next time.